Good day and welcome to the session today. My name is Tilene Narainan, and I'm going to take you through the convenience retail business and understanding the digital landscape. So just as we begin, if you can just take a moment to think about retail, think about what you have seen and think about where you have been. And now forget that. If we really think about retail, retail is everywhere. It's no longer confined by four walls. It's no longer confined by building structures or bricks and mortar. Retail is everywhere. And I think often we think about retail from an online perspective, but we forget the other aspects of retail, whether it's a shoe shiner at the airport, or whether it's a food truck at a flea market, or whether it's a street vendor or someone selling goods at the traffic lights. These are all aspects of retail, and some of it is enabled by technology to make it seamless and to ensure that it's accessible to more people. So when we think about retail, I think to set the scene in terms of the convenience retail landscape that we're going to look at, it's important to note that we have to look at all aspects of these elements that can lead to different solutions, customer value propositions, as well as understanding what the customer's needs are to develop these solutions within retail to create the perception of retail being connected and being accessible to all. If we take a look back in terms of convenience and think about the milk delivery vehicles that used to deliver milk at our doors. And I think in some parts of the world, this type of solution has resurfaced, but it's come full circle from where it was to where it is at the moment. And I think if we think about what happened to this milk vehicle and milk deliveries, and what was the need that created it, if we look at back then, the need for the customer was that the stores were spread out quite far. People didn't want to travel the distances, and there was limited refrigeration space. And gradually that changed in terms of the corner stores that gradually developed and was within the local communities, and they had an expanded range. But if we look at what the milk vehicles or the delivery vehicles had done is they were solely focused on their product and not on the customer. And if they had evolved, they could have expanded their product range, and we would have seen a whole different evolution of what this would have looked like. But in saying that, things have evolved and it has changed. And if we take a look at how convenience is reimagined, I think we'll come back to the milk vehicle. But for now, I want to share a video of a mobile convenience store called MobiMart. And I think it tells a really good story of convenience being reimagined and what that would look like.
Okay, it's 7 p.m. and you're at home making pancakes for the kids when suddenly you realize that you need more milk. You're hungry, the kids are hungry, and the last corner shop shut down in 1986 because it was just too expensive to staff. What do? Get into the Toyota and drive 20 minutes to Megamart, trail up and down the aisles while the kids scream behind you, and then 20 minutes back again? The last 50 years, we've seen small corner shops die and be replaced by gigantic megamarts outside cities. Today, over half the world's population does not have access to groceries within walking distance, and in the US, the number is almost 60%. The lack of retail, or for that matter, over-the-counter drugs, can be a question of life and death. Mobi is the store that will fix this. Here's how it works. The Mobi is stocked at a central place and then driven to the place where it operates. It can be in a suburb, the city center, or a small village. There is no staff, so it can be open around the clock. It is solar powered, so it can work off the grid. And yes, it's on wheels and therefore can park practically everywhere. Look out your window. Yep, right there could be an awesome convenience store. So how do you shop? You open the store with your phone. You enter, take what you need, and leave. Yep, it's that simple. The products you leave with are registered in the app and then charged to your account. This means you can enter the store, buy a bottle of lemonade and a chocolate bar in less than 20 seconds. The low running costs makes it profitable not just in city centers, but in suburbs as well as in rural villages. We call it the corner store reinvented. Media from around the world has hailed us as pioneers. We've now run our beta store in Shanghai for 6 months. The data is very positive. We already have a higher turnover than a traditional store of the same size. And over 5% of our customer base use the Mobi every day. And don't forget, convenience retail is also a market of over $1 trillion per year. We will now build and launch 10 more Mobi stores in the greater Shanghai vicinity. We have a world-class team of top engineers as well as seasoned startup people and revolutionaries. We are now inviting you to join us on this mission to reinvent the corner store. Okay, it's 7.
So if we look at the video of MobiMart, I think it expands the thinking of what convenience could be if it was reimagined. But is it just a cool idea? I think it's not very practical if we look at it realistically, but the functionality and what it can do opens us to a whole world of other possibilities. So if we look at it, we also have Uber Eats, and during the pandemic, we've seen that convenience stores have opted to also participate on these online delivery aggregators, and it's now expanded the products that are now available on Uber Eats. So when we look at MobiMart, we saw that there were shoes, and you could add clothing, and you could add a whole range of other products. So what's stopping other clothing retailers or other manufacturers from adding other products? Because the platform is available, the delivery solution is there. It's just a matter of adding the products to the app and creating that delivery solution. And if we had to flip the script on this, we would look at some of the marketplace solutions that exist on our e-commerce sites at the moment. You could get online retailers that could say, maybe I should do this, and maybe I should start delivering in terms of creating my own delivery service similar to this. So it could work either way. And this is where looking at retail, it's not just confined to convenience, it's not just confined to a specific sector. It can disrupt, I think, a whole host of sectors if we really put our minds to it. Restaurants have changed how they do business as well, with now having to have this delivery solution. Some have opted for delivery aggregators and some have opted for their own solutions. But at the end of the day, it's evolving and it's changing. And if we continue to focus on the products that you have now versus looking at beyond that and looking at what the customer needs and how that is evolving and how can retailers meet that need and look at things in a different way. So if we had to look at convenience retail, there are many different aspects that make up a convenience retail business. And it's often just looked at a convenience retail store at a fuel station, which I'll be speaking about specifically, is that there's a food service solution that's included in the convenience store. So understanding that part of the business and understanding, do I need a delivery service? Should I do my own delivery service? Should I partner with a delivery aggregator? Should I develop my range in terms of adding or expanding private label? Or should I just buy in bought-in products, which again is pros and cons to both solutions? And where does technology fit into this? And we'll get to that at the next stage. So looking at partnerships, another core element within convenience retail. And everyone's familiar with food partners and coffee partners. However, if we look at how we need to partner going forward in a more digital world, we'd have to look at how do we partner with technology service providers. And speaking to many technology service providers that we work with on a daily basis, you'd find that many large organizations want to work with other large corporates. And these large technology service providers always subcontract to smaller service providers. And when you speak to those companies that actually specialize and are actually the foundation of what is required, because they so specialize in what they do, they would say that they're happy to be part of the solution, but they would be willing to expand and innovate far more than what they're confined to by being subcontracted by a larger organization. And I think that just opens up the thinking to say, are we limiting ourselves because of who we're partnering with? And how do we partner? And how do we then refine it? And how do we define how we partner? And I think the solutions that we look at, and again, bringing it back to the customer as well as the retailer, especially in the convenience retail business, where we have a business model that is largely franchise format driven. And partnerships, again, still going on there, is value added services, which is a separate component here, where you can partner or you can have your own in-house solutions. But again, there are pros and cons to that. And looking at value added services, you'd see that event ticketing, vehicle license renewals, sports events, gaming, which forms part of betting as well, bill payments, career services, pharmacy solutions, all of this form part of that convenience need. People want to save time, and if they can have that one-stop shop at your convenience store, then it makes their trip worthwhile. And that's where your omni-channel and future formats come in terms of how do you innovate and look at reshaping and re-looking and remodeling your business model and business formats to make sure that you cater for this future customer that wants to see more solutions that can help them in terms of improving their quality of life by saving some time and adding that value back to them. And that's where we also look at category management. And I think this is where, when we look at this specifically, you'd see how this has changed over the years. But if you look at the 6 C's, which always comes up, and sometimes it's 8 C's and 9 C's, but I think the 6 C's are sufficient in terms of focusing on the core categories, which are, for example, your cigarettes, your coffee, your convenience food, looking at even condoms, cellular, crisps, chocolates, confectionery, and the list goes on, as I mentioned. But the crux of the matter is that the length and breadth of that product range is what is going to be enticing to that customer. How do you display that product? What is the space planning requirements? And how do you create some retailtainment in that space? Do we have a fresh juice bar? Do you add things in terms of complementing the categories that are there with the food services that are in store as well? And bringing all of that together and understanding your trading solutions, as well as your pricing and your product assortment optimization per segment as well. You've got different shopper profiles and you've got different location segments as well. And South Africa is one of the most diverse in terms of the LSM profiles being so mixed in terms of certain areas. So you'd have to be careful in terms of how you manage that, and the data is going to help with that. And I think if we look at the golden threads across the convenience business, you'd see that there's loyalty solutions that are driving value at the moment. But loyalty solutions and food services and partners and anything new that you bring on board is not going to be impactful to the customer if it doesn't have the right marketing. And if we just look at loyalty programs in general, the better performing loyalty programs are not the ones that actually add the most value to customers. It's the ones that actually have the better marketing campaigns and have cleverly marketed and have done really smart and innovative ways of communicating to customers, and not over communicating as well. I know people sometimes want to personalize everything and then you over communicate to customers, and that's just overwhelming. So you have to find a fine balance between that as well. And that's where the entire customer experience comes in. So how do you bring in food service, the partners, the category management, looking at the digital solutions and bringing all of that in seamlessly, and looking at operations. I think operation effectiveness is where the crux of this entire solution fits in. You have to have those solutions in place. And just looking at operations and customer experience, they almost go hand in hand. So if we had to look at online shopping behavior, that inform some of the customer experience solutions that we would be bringing into the store, you'd find that if we look at pre and post pandemic, some of the insights that we've gathered is that more than 90% of customers are now using more technology platforms than they used to pre-COVID. Looking at online shopping in terms of popularity, which channels and what products have ranked the highest in terms of what customers are actually shopping. So general merchandise, clothing, grocery, pharmacy, toys, hobbies, DIY stuff really did extremely well. So how do we incorporate that into a convenience retail business? You cannot expand the product ranges far further than your space can require. So there's a bit of space planning and product optimization that comes in there. Also looking at some of the key components here is that more than 50% have transitioned to online shopping channels or are using more mobile payment solutions than they used to prior to COVID, and delivery solutions. And just to point out a key note here is that all of these technology solutions were around before COVID or before the pandemic happened. And we always talk about how COVID has accelerated the digital adoption rate. And if you think about why that has happened, I firmly believe that the technology has always been there, but COVID created the need. And similarly, when you're looking at technology, you have to look at it from a customer need point of view and what is going to add value to that customer, as opposed to just looking at the technology and then working its way backwards. That is somehow, sometimes you get seduced by the technology to say, you're looking at the features, you're looking at the capabilities, but at the end of the day, it comes down to what need is this technology solving, and how can I improve that quality of life for that customer? And again, this is why I strongly believe that digital has grown so substantially during this phase, because the need for not being in contact and being in a physical space with other people has created this shift and almost movement towards the digital space. And what's interesting is that it hasn't just moved and there's no value in it. Looking at some of the stats, you see that on a minimum basis, most of these key categories that have been ranked here have doubled since the spend has doubled, I should say, since 2019. And if I look at some of the local retailers versus the international retailers, which have become more accessible via the online channels, and people have tried out these solutions. So it's a matter of that increased competition, more choices for the customer, and how do we then adapt accordingly? Another interesting note that I had to mention is that in some of the consumer focus groups that we've had, or looking at some of the research that we've done, it's interesting to note that the 18 to 25-year-old customers are actually reluctant to use digital payment solutions due to a lack of trust. So if they had to adopt it, and not saying that they don't, a lot of them do use it, but they're very reluctant. If they've used a specific digital platform, they would not move over or switch over to something new or different, or even getting them on board to even recruiting or to try out some of these new digital platforms. They were the most hesitant and had most resistance in terms of payment solutions. However, on the flip side, your 30 to 45-year-olds were more comfortable with digital solutions. And I think it's also something to do with the fact that 18 to 25-year-olds, some may be in the working environments and some may be not in that working environment. So that does play a role in terms of their access to these solutions, their income as well, and how they manage that. And it was quite interesting to note that as much as the adoption of social media and those type of platforms are much higher in the younger age groups, but the actual solutions that we would typically look at in store, they're not specifically looking at that, or they're hesitant to try it out. And whereas your 30 to 45-year-olds have tried it out and have been using it for a while and are more comfortable with some of these solutions. So looking at customer experience and taking into account the online shopping behavior that we've noted, it can be overwhelming for a customer if we look at all of these solutions all at once. Um, so there are the customer solutions, which are in light blue, and the retailer solutions, which are in a pink color. So if we look at all of the customer experience solutions where the customer is going to interface with this technology, they are pre-order solutions when it comes to the food service space or the coffee space for that matter, your digital menus or your delivery and collections. And there's multiple ways of doing that in terms of app-based ordering or in-store ordering and still catering for that customer need. And within convenience, there's a need for speed. So slow service deters customers. I'm sure everyone has experience going to a fuel station to fill up, and having slow service actually just deters you from that whole experience. So convenience is about speed, it's about quick commerce, and looking at those type of solutions that again is going to show the customer that you value their time and that you are having the solutions available. But in saying that, if we look at self-service checkout, just walkout technology, which have been accelerating internationally, you look at the South African consumer and you look at, we're used to having someone that's going to cash for us, someone that's going to pack our goods for us. And now you're asking a customer to do that for themselves. And I've seen in some retail stores that I've been to over a busy period where you're actually asking customers to do some self-service checkout, and they're quite lost in terms of how to go about doing that. So I think there's a bit of a hybrid solution that would come into that space. And I'm not saying it's completely out, because there are many customers that would still want to use that service. And if we look at the convenience space specifically, there may be a large number of category exclusions. For example, cigarettes won't be able to be self-service unless you have someone actually monitoring it from the age restriction point of view, or looking at some of the high value items that result in pilferage and shrinkage, which are now behind the counter. So you'd have to have a number of exclusions in terms of how that technology is going to work. Mobile payments and skipping the queue are all part of either the convenience store and food service solutions and need to work holistically together. If we look at the forecourt and some of the solutions that are in the space, you look at loyalty programs, frictionless payments again, and EV charging. And those are, again, you'd speak to a lot of people that are hesitant about adding EVs and looking at it, but it is something that cannot be ignored. Looking at click and collect, also looking at those type of services where customers just want to come in, and you have many variations of this, which we've seen during the pandemic in the early stages of where you had curbside collection, where you could place your orders via email, WhatsApp, or multiple different channels. Even if you call in your order, you pay for it and you come in and you just collect it. It's delivered to a parking bay specifically. And many retailers and quick service restaurants, for that matter, have continuously adapted to meet these needs. And I think that's where the value is really added in. Also looking at in-store smart shelves and smart baskets, where again, it works together hand in hand with just walkout technology or self-service checkouts, in that these solutions need to be looked at holistically. They need to be phased, staged, and planned. And looking at the retailer side of it, it all goes hand in hand. And often you find that you want to look at the customer-facing solutions without looking at the back end, which is where the retailer or the franchisee running the store actually needs tools to enable them to add value to that customer experience. And we look at, again, from the food space, you need food management systems helping with wastage, helping with food safety compliance, equipment monitoring. And then looking at your data and supply chain analytics, if we want fulfillment hubs or last mile delivery logistics, which again is about partnering or adding that additional element. We've got over 4,500 fuel stations. So if we become fulfillment hubs for that, which we've seen again internationally, and with the lack of a fully functioning postal service, you find that courier services and locker units in terms of click and collect are still needed substantially and are used quite extensively in this channel. Again, for that need for speed, that convenience retail is there to meet that shopping mission and customer occasions. You have to have all of this in place and understand that and build it into the plans to say, if you don't have those supply chain analytics or data that needs to enable these services, how do we go about adding that? Another important point when it comes to fuel and service stations is security systems, as well as preventative maintenance. And this is where, again, if your systems are down or if your fuel pumps are down, you cannot serve your customers, you're losing sales. So it has to be incorporated into this entire digital experience. And noting as well that everything here will work together in terms of how you would plan it, customer journeys, looking at the enterprise architecture that needs to be done. Each solution cannot be done in isolation. You'd have to have an entire plan done holistically in order for this to work seamlessly and to have that connected experience. And last but not least, I'm a very strong believer in terms of operational effectiveness, adding to strategy. And that's where I've added in a little bit at the bottom to say that you can have all of the technology back end and front end. And if you don't have the fundamental basics in place, for example, customer service, safety and security, if your customers don't feel safe, and that's not just being safe from a in-store perspective, but also an online shopping experience. It needs to be online and offline that you have the right customer service, the right safety experience, the right quality, looking at the quality of the service, the quality of the products as well. What are you offering? And do your staff and the people that are working with these brands that are engaging with customers also understand all of this? And that's a key component in terms of all of these technology solutions as well. If it's going to be in store or online and you're going to have those customer interfacing individuals, they need to be trained on these solutions as well. And usually when you're looking at a solution like this, as much as you have consumer focus groups and you do consumer research, it's important to get your frontline staff involved in some of this in some of the value creation here, because they have valuable insights in terms of how things operate on the ground and what needs to be considered that may be blind spots from a head office or a bigger thinking point of view. So holistically, again, the frontline staff should be involved or give input into solutions that are then developed. And last but not least, look and feel and housekeeping are critical to the brand. And again, this is online or offline that you're looking at. And how do you create that that customer journey? And how do you create that vision to say that the customers are comfortable shopping in store? Because if your store doesn't look and feel good or clean, then it compromises your quality, it compromises that customer returning to the store. So looking at that entire process, it can be quite overwhelming with all of the technology that's there. So how do you streamline it, and how do you then come back to saying, how do I prioritize certain functions and features? And as I've been mentioning, you start off with that customer need. What are their pain points? And slow service is one of the pain points that you get within convenience retail. People want to go in and out of the store. They want to be out within a few minutes. So you'd have to look at that specifically to say, what need am I addressing with each of the technology that I have here? What is going to add the most value to the customer in terms of how do you prioritize all of these solutions? It can be overwhelming to customers. So you'd like to phase it in and get them used to at least one or two aspects before you start adding more and more. And you have to say, okay, the technology I'm adding is going to reduce time, or it's going to reduce effort. It's going to increase the monetary value for either the retailer, or it's going to add monetary value to the customer. And that's where the quality and value needs to be looked at from that point of view. And then you would have to look at which technology then addresses this need of improving the quality of life for that consumer the most. And that's where you come to the purpose, because technology without a purpose is just an existence. And as I've mentioned, when you look at the pandemic, you'd find that most technologies were available, including Zoom, but it only accelerated when the need was created and when there was a purpose for it. So it's important to note that that's how you need to incorporate the digital and the customer experience into all of these new solutions that are coming into play within the space. So last but not least, looking at a timeline of how this could play out. So if you're looking at 0 to 3 years, you're looking at mobile and data solutions that are accelerating, which is happening at the moment. As you spoke about bill payments earlier, as value-added services, that is one aspect that is growing double to triple digit growth in the space. And again, showing the need that as much as they are online solutions, there are still customers that would like to go in store and still have those services available. Omnichannel is looking at, again, what are the right channels for your business and how do you cater for that? And sometimes I find that retailers have lost their identity. They want to create something or be in a channel because someone else is on that channel, not, again, looking at that customer need, looking at that customer experience that would need to be looked at from an omni-channel point of view. Loyalty, bringing in driver assist vehicles, hybrid vehicles, and we see that at the moment. Most vehicles do have some sort of park assist, which is driver assist vehicles, and you see that slowly creeping in terms of how that's going to play out. And in 3 to 5 years, you'd look at, it's not saying that whatever we put in the 0 to 3 year category is not going to happen. It's just building on to say what else is going to be more accelerated within this time. And looking at either medical pods, your connected vehicles, and fulfillment hubs and green stores, always renewable energy, and bringing that into more and more stores. That is going to be what we're going to see more of. From a 5 to 10 year mark, you see that from connected cars, we go to connected service stations. And that's where, from at that point in time, most of that technology that you've seen could be built in, or it could be adapted or changed, but you'd see a lot more changes in terms of how that solution is going to play out. And you may see more charging stations, alternative energy offerings, and within a 10-year space, you'd see that you're moving from the connected car to the connected service station to connected homes as well. And looking at driverless vehicles, which may or may not accelerate in terms of the space due to legislative requirements. However, it's something that, again, cannot be ignored. And looking at your fully integrated digital services within that space. So in a nutshell, I hope I've given you a full overview of the convenience retail landscape, how digital plays a role in terms of all the aspects and components that make up the convenience retail business, and to give you some food for thought in terms of how you should prioritize and look at that in more detail. Thank you.
Good day, my name is Sean Cottill. I am the Business Development Executive for SafraCloud, based in Southern Africa. We are a leader and innovator in cloud communication technologies. We help companies achieve their digital transformation journey. As many of you will know, e-commerce is growing in Africa, but lags behind the rest of the developed world when it comes to the overall experience. Besides the logistical and payment issues, there are trust challenges to overcome. Africa is different culturally to the rest of the world. Our people are diverse. We have broad cultural reference points. We are open and friendly people that value social interactions. This spoils over the way we like to purchase. That is why any digital experience that is implemented in Africa needs to be put authentic human connections at the heart of it. It can't just be all about robots and forms of pixels. Sure, that may work for some of your customers, but it won't help connect that person to you as a brand. That is why we love Genesis DX so much. It's the world-leading AI interaction technology for e-commerce that provides the personal touch. You can engage 24/7 on the channels your customers prefer, including chatbots, web messaging, live chat, email, SMS, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, and more. With Genesis DX, you can always be available across all channels through one integrated system, making it easy for your customer to find answers on their own or for your team to step in when help is needed. I know a lot of technology companies make big promises like this and fail to deliver. That is why I want to show it to you again in action. Our friends at Genesis have put together some live demos of how DX works. Let's take a look at the e-commerce chatbot first. Remember, this could easily be any of the major channels that your customer prefers.
Welcome to our demonstration of Genesis DX AI-powered virtual assistant. We're going to follow our visitor Dan on the Bold Brands website as he navigates and needs help. The bot introduces itself. We can click on this to start the conversation. And from here, the bot's asking for our name. So we'll just put in Dan. And then from here, the bot's going to have a couple of options we can choose that might be frequently asked questions. I could choose one of those, or I could easily type in a new question. I'm just going to choose payment types. And then from here, the bot provides a simple answer. We can also ask this in a different way. The bot has what we call NLP, or natural language processing, where it can understand different ways of phrasing the same question and really read between the lines if someone's using a different verbiage or different synonyms. So I'll ask this in a different way. Can I use Apple Pay? And the bot provides the same answer, knowing that this is the same intent. The bot can also provide real-time language translation using a product called GeoFluent. From here, I can have a persistent menu that allows me to change languages. We're going to choose Spanish. And I'll paste in a Spanish version of the same question. And the bot translates that question, finds an English-based answer, translates that answer back into Spanish, and provides it to our customer. This can also be used when we're having the conversation with a live agent who speaks a different language and needs the same translation service. So we'll switch back into English for the rest of the demo. Now let's take a look at something a little more complicated. Maybe someone needs some help shopping for something. Not sure which headsets to get. This is going to take us down a conversational flow where the bot is going to help someone find the right answer, ask some questions, and take them down a decision tree. So it'll ask for some responses here, and then provide some more details, and then ask another question. And then once it finds an answer, we're going to present this information in a nice format we call a carousel that allows you to have some rich images, some links, and more information about the items that they're looking at. The bot's also able to access third-party systems. So maybe someone needs to check an order. We need to tie into another system. We can use APIs to do that. So let's say someone says, what's the status of my order? And you'll notice while I'm typing, a lot of times the bot tries to predict what the article is. I could easily click on one of those links if I wanted to, or continue typing. So the bot's going to take us through a couple of questions that it needs answered before it can look up the results. I'll put in an order number. I'll provide what other information the bot needs. And the bot's going to go find the information from this third-party system and present it here. I can also expand my widget if I need more real estate to see this answer. And you'll notice at the end of a lot of these questions, we're providing some feedback options. So this really helps our content manager know which articles are working and which need some more work. Let's take a look at what a video would look like within the bot. So let's say someone has a question about some fashion trends. This could be any type of video content that we have. Maybe it's promotions, maybe it's a product line that we're carrying, maybe it's some training. We can play these videos within the widget, or we could make them full screen and then continue the conversation after the video is done. Now let's take a look at an example of where the bot may not know the answer. So we're going to say, do you have any fall specials? So if the bot doesn't know the answer to this, it could provide some sort of answer code and then offer an option to escalate either to a live agent, or if it's after hours, this could be an email form or an option to call. So that's a look at how the bot is able to help support your customers and provide that easy assistance.
I want to introduce you to Shaul Strauss. Shaul is a Senior Solutions Architect at SafraCloud. Shaul and his technical team will help you implement this technology so you can impress your customers. Let us show you how the magic works.
Thanks for that, Sean. It's not really magic, but hopefully it feels that way to the people that's visiting your site. The demonstration you viewed is really just a step further than just managing an omnichannel experience bot. We will now look at the essential step that makes the experience more human and ultimately leads to more conversations. As Sean mentioned, we South Africans, we are different. We like to talk to people. South African BPOs are also becoming increasingly popular around the world because South Africans have empathy. The rest of the world loves our call centers because we love to talk and engage with people. So how do we make that happen in a purely digital space? The biggest barrier to a good conversation between people is misunderstanding. Getting clarity around a question or request is the most important, as it removes the frustration experienced by the shopper. We all know that frustration is the biggest conversation killer. If a customer gets frustrated, then they are very unlikely to remain a customer. To keep more customers and increase conversations, we have a system that empowers agents, CX managers to solve problems more quickly and clearly than any other omnichannel software. Our friends at Genesis will now demonstrate.
Hello again. In this video, we'll take a look at how we can take a Genesis DX chatbot engagement and escalate it or channel it to a live agent. So we have our bot conversation here. We're going to slide this over and do a little bit of a split view. So we see the bot and the visitor on the left side. And then on the right side, this is going to be the agent interface. So we'll click on our button to start the channeling or escalation. The live agent gets a new work item that shows up. They can accept this. And then from here, we're going to be able to see as a live agent what the entire transcript is of what happened previously. So I can come up to speed pretty quickly and know what our customer was looking for. I can also respond to them and start the conversation. This is my editing panel. I'm going to be able to format items, put in hyperlinks, images, and even upload a file if I need to send something to my customer. Smart Advisor is the next panel. This is really allowing the bot to continue helping me as a live agent. So if there's something in the knowledge base that's going to help my conversation, it's going to be recommended here. So let's say our visitor says, do you accept PayPal? Now, there is an article or a knowledge base article that exists, and this is presented to our agent. Our agent can click on this. It shows up in the editing panel. They can add some more content if they want, or just hit enter and send this across. So this is really allowing our agent to get access to those answers as quickly as possible and help our customer with anything that's already available in our knowledge base. If we do need to type up something new, maybe there's something that doesn't exist in the knowledge base, and I type up a nice long article like this, I have the ability to suggest this as an article as well. So I can click on this suggest as an article feature. That's going to get presented to my knowledge manager, and they can review that, edit it, and then make this a new article. It really is going to help your team of frontline agents help crowdsource your knowledge base and keep everything fresh. As an agent, I also have the ability to see information about my customer, also the history of the customer. So if our customer Dan is mentioning a previous conversation that happened last week, I can easily click on our history here and see exactly what he's talking about and come up to speed pretty quickly. We also have the ability to tie into other systems. So we do have out-of-the-box integrations with Zendesk and Salesforce. By clicking on this, this opens up a new panel and allows me to see information from either one of those systems. It can automatically pass through email addresses or customer information and automatically find existing cases, tickets, and contacts. These can also be what we would call a DIY integration. So if you want to use something besides these out-of-the-box integrations, this can present really any web-based system within one of these panel type structures. Can be as simple as having that type of information in an iframe, having that website, or using APIs could actually pass information through and write to those records. We also have the ability to co-browse. So let's say Dan is having problems on the website filling out a form. I could start a co-browse session, which is going to allow me to see what he's seen and then have shared keyboard and mouse control with Dan and assist him along his journey. And the last thing I want to show you is just more of a supervisor view. So I can go over to what we call monitor view, and I'm able to see what's happening within my organization as far as who's logged in, if they're available, how many chats they have. And if I want to drill down a little further, I can see this conversation as it's going on, and I can add to it. So maybe someone's in training and I want to virtually look over their shoulder, and if they get stuck, I want to add something to the conversation. I can do that as well. I can also see closed interactions. So if there's something that's happening that I want to take a look at, maybe spot check or help with training, this is really going to allow me to do that. And so that's a look at our agent interface and how we can continue the conversation from the bot seamlessly with that harmonious transfer of information.
As you can see, efficiently sharing information with customers and internal team members makes for happy customers and happy teams.
Thank you, Sean. The DX experience is for those companies that really want to lead the field by having a world-class customer experience, but with a South African flavor. Genesys is known as the premium product in this space. This is largely because of the huge amount of features that comes as standard, including artificial intelligence and machine learning. However, Genesys have just created the DX package as a standalone product. This means that you don't have to convince your IT team to change all of their systems to get this. You can implement the DX suite and integrate all your existing services so that your CX, e-commerce, and contact teams have the systems that enable them to be at their best. If you want to see how virtual and live agent interactions can increase your conversations, then speak to me. I will drop you an email after the conference so you can have any of your questions answered. Thank you.